Hello and welcome to the FatBoss guide to Felhounds of Sargeras on Mythic in Antorus, the Burning Throne. Yes, this fight hasn't changed all too much from its heroic version. The majority of the boss's abilities work the same way, and the raid pretty much needs to deal with them the same way they did on heroic. The main change for this fight is that the entire raid will be coated in one of two debuffs. These debuffs encourage you to split your raid up and work as two 10-man teams, each with their own dog. So let's have a look at these debuffs. At the start of the fight, half the raid will be debuffed with Shadow Touched, and the other half with Flame Touched. The boss will attempt to place these debuffs evenly amongst the roles, with each tank receiving a different debuff, and one half of the healers receiving a different debuff than the other half. Shadow Touch reduces the shadow damage you take by 25%, and when you receive any fire damage, it will cause you to grip in the nearest player and deal a small burst of shadow damage to them. As for Flame Touched, it reduces the fire damage you take by 25%, and additionally, whenever you receive any shadow damage whatsoever, you will spawn a patch on the floor which explodes, dealing some fire damage to nearby players, whilst also leaving a pool of fire on the ground that lasts for 2 whole minutes. So to put it simply, Shadow Touch players want to avoid taking any fire damage, and Flame Touch players want to avoid taking any shadow damage. And this is best done, as Alex already said, by splitting into 2 teams based on what debuff you get, with the Shadow Touch players sticking to the Shadow Dog, and the Flame Touch players staying with the Fire Dog. Now, although everyone will be affected by the spells that the dogs do, each individual group needs to pay more attention to the opposite dog's abilities, as it's going to be doing extra negative things to you because of its damage type. So for the Shadow Touch players, the Molten Touch, of course, isn't that bad because you can just move from the circles. However, you cannot avoid the damage from the Enflame Corruption debuffs. As a result, you will be gripping each other all over the place, and to be honest, this is just more annoying than anything else. It is vital, however, that you do not grip the tank, otherwise potentially you're going to cleave the raid. You also cannot avoid the damage from Desolate Gaze, however the grip happens when you take damage. Therefore, the player that you grip won't be hit, so it's not really that much of a big deal. Once again, don't grip the tank. Now as for the Flame Touch players, you have a slightly harder job. Weight of Darkness, of course, deals absolutely no damage, so you don't have to worry about the fires from that. Just simply stack in the circles to prevent the fear. You can obviously avoid the Consuming Sphere as it's being shot out, however on Mythic, once it reaches its destination it will explode, dealing a huge amount of damage to anyone within its targeting circle and a smaller amount of raid-wide shadow damage to everyone. Now because you have Flame Touched, this will spawn fire underneath your feet. So before this Consuming Sphere reaches its final destination, you'll ideally be in a position where fire won't be in the way, generally around the sides of the room. Worst of all for the Flame Touch players is Siphon Corruption. As the debuffs will nearly one-shot a player if they're alone, you've got to stack up. This means that everyone within will be taking shadow damage, so you're going to be spawning an absolute shit ton of fire patches. You want all the fire people to stack and simply move around as a group, leaving the fire patches as they spawn. As the fires spawn, the Fire Dog tank should move the dog around the room to make sure that they give the Fire Touch players as much space as they need. We found that doing a large oval-shaped kiting pattern from the top of the room right down to the bottom worked best. By the time you're back where you started, the fire should have despawned, allowing the cycle to continue. Now whilst this is going on, the Shadow Dog tank should mirror the movement whilst maintaining the 40+ yard distance so that healers can have range on everyone and DPS can multi-dart. One thing to note with the fire and shadow debuffs is that during the encounter the debuff will change once, perhaps more if your damage is low. This causes everyone to gain the opposite debuff. When this happens, simply just taunt the bosses off each other and everyone else can just remain in place. Just keep in mind you do have a different debuff, so you are going to get different effects. And the final thing to mention on Mythic is that the dogs no longer have a shared health pool. When a dog dies, it'll actually stay at 1 health and attempt to heal 15% of its maximum health back on a 15-second cast. As a result, you'll need both dogs to die within 15 seconds of each other, otherwise they're going to simply just keep healing. Just track both health pools and you'll be absolutely fine. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Now if you'd like a written guide for this encounter with some pictures and generally something you can refer to easily during your raid, then do go check out our written guide over on Wowhead. The link for that is in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If this guide did help you out, then make sure you leave a like on it, and a big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your continued support, and thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thank you.